Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the Label, a series dedicated to discussing things, beyond the label. As always, I'm Chris Orr, the Global Director of Sales Engineering here at Siegel Scientific, the makers of BarTender software. Thanks everyone for sticking around. In this latest episode, we are going to be going past the history of barcodes and what they mean, and exploring the label itself. In particular, the kinds of labels that we interact with literally on a daily basis, food labels. In the last couple of episodes, we dove deep into the invention and history of the barcode and what the little bars and stripes mean. There are lots of different codes which all contain varying amounts of information about an item, but obviously these are not really human readable. No one expects people to be able to look at these things as anything but a Rorschach test. So it is essential for the producers of these items to put information on the package that allows us mere mortals to know what's in the box. Labels are meant to communicate information about an object or the contents of a container. Some of the earliest labels date back to the Egyptian pharaohs, where they carved or pressed hieroglyphic symbols into the clay jars to indicate the contents, or the Roman Empire, where pendants were hung on flasks and jars, probably to indicate whether it contained olive oil or wine or something else. Some of the first bottles of Dom Perignon in the 17th century were tagged with parchment and paper labels, but it wouldn't be until the mid-1800s that improved printing and adhesive technologies allowed them to be put directly on the glass. Why was it so important to know what is inside a bottle or on the box of cereal? Well, brand recognition for one. Labels became a way for manufacturers and sellers to differentiate their products from that of a competitor. People also need to know what the product is made of or whether or not it meets their nutritional requirements. No artificial colors, no artificial flavors. This is the sort of thing that makes parents feel good, that they are not buying a product that may be potentially harmful to their kids. But what was to be done when there are millions of products on the market shelves? How do you prevent mislabeling, counterfeits? How does a person with diabetes or celiac disease make sure that the ingredients in a product won't cause them any harm? Every item on this single aisle alone has its own label that is trying to convey to the consumer that not only is it the best, but it is also the safest or healthiest or tastes better than every other item next to it. Most of us have a vested interest in the accuracy of a label in some form or fashion. Governments have an interest in making sure that the contents of a package are accurate. Manufacturers have an interest in ensuring that the raw materials that they are receiving are correct. Shippers need accurate labeling to make sure that items reach their intended destination. All up and down the supply chain, from the point of production to the time it gets bought and maybe even beyond, it is often critical that the labels or the markings on them are accurate and readable. Food labels need to convey a lot of information in a potentially small amount of space. Why? Well, food safety for one. Prior to the 1800s, most people ate things that either grew or made themselves or bought from a nearby trusted place. But even then, people would get sick or even die because they weren't aware of how it was stored or when it was made and possibly if it had gone bad. The problem got even worse the further away the buyers were from the point of production. Things were getting shipped longer and longer distances, not to mention there were more than a few people who were out to make a fast buck and do things like dilute the contents to make their production cheaper. Or they would make outrageous claims about what the product would do on their labels. The term snake oil salesman literally came about when people in the American Old West would travel from town to town selling bottles of who knows what, claiming that their product would cure any and all diseases and ailments. All of which takes us to the concept of compliance and standardization. In order for any of these systems to work, there needs to be some sort of agreed upon framework. Sometimes it's voluntary, sort of, like GS1 from the last episode, and other times it's mandatory through some sort of industry group or local, state, or federal governmental organization. In the United States, it wasn't until the Food and Drug Administration was invented that these sorts of claims began to be regulated. They realized that people needed to know what was in a product and when it was made and what sort of, claims were being made and whether or not they were even true. It seems like there are so many rules and regulations governing this, that, and the other thing. People today are all like to complain about all the fine print on the labels, but they are all there for a reason. Like my FAA examples in the previous episodes, behind nearly every FDA regulation is a tragedy of some sort. Someone got sick or someone died as a result of the consumption or use of a product that did not have accurate information or labeling, or claimed something that wasn't true. Let's take a look at the labeling on a few packages from items I had in my pantry, for example. This packet of Beyond Raw Lit clinically dosed pre-workout. The claim here is that consuming this product will somehow help me be more effective when I do my exercises, give me more energy, boost my efficiency. However, if we turn this thing over and take a closer look at the FDA mandated labeling, we see a ton of fine print about the actual ingredients in this product. The two main things I would like to point out are the boxes on the bottom left. The first is the bottom box, which is quite prominent, with the bold lettering, "This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration." This tells me that, as a consumer, I need to take the claim that this will somehow help me with my workout with a grain, maybe even a teaspoon of salt. No official testing has ever been done to back up the claim that Beyond Raw is making here. The second is the box above it with the warnings, and there are quite a few, including some that indicate you could cause some sort of reproductive problems if you are pregnant. Or how about this box of Welch's fruit snacks? Real fruit, it claims. No preservatives, gluten-free. Again, looking at the mandated ingredient label, we see the quote-unquote warning box at the top this time, not intended to replace fresh fruit in the diet, just in case I thought I could eat a bunch of these instead of an actual apple and get the same nutritional results. And then the prominent gluten-free symbol. This is the sort of thing that assures people with gluten sensitivities or celiac disease that the contents of this box will not cause them any sort of problems or harm. Finally, we have this can of Spam. Don't judge me. The thing I want to call out here is the part of the label that shows the contents of this can were U.S. inspected and passed by the Department of Agriculture, which also probably has a long list of rules and regulations making sure that this glob of random meats was made in a clean, safe factory and probably doesn't contain human fingernails or other body parts. And with less sodium. At the end of the day, food science and the creators of the products we consume are constantly racing to get ahead of each other and the entities that govern them. It wasn't until 1966 that the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act forced manufacturers and their items to be honestly and informatively labeled. But people are still getting sick or dying from foodborne illnesses. So more recently, the FDA is working on the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA. It details what sorts of actions every person or entity on the long chain of production from raw ingredient to final product has to take to ensure that it is handled correctly and safely and is trackable, to the point where if someone does get sick from consuming the item, they can trace the journey of that specific item, potentially to figure out where the problem was introduced. They often do that by requiring something like a lot number, like the one on this bottle of supplements, or other data, like the information on the bottom of my can of Spam. All of this tells both the consumer and the retail shop when they should pull this product from the shelf, or if there's a recall, they have the ability to find the specific item and pull the correct ones off the shelf. Well, there you have it, folks. While this particular journey beyond the label has been focused on food labels and what the manufacturers have to do to be compliant with various government requirements, nearly every industry has their own set of rules, regulations, or standards that they have to comply with. In the future, we will be exploring those, and if you have any questions or ideas, please let us know what sorts of topics you think we should be looking at. Thank you for your time, and I hope you stick around for the next episode of Beyond the Label.